Another day, another win for President Trump. The Supreme Court of the United States sending a clear message to those rogue, low-level activist judges that they can no longer overrule the executive authority of the President of the United States.
I was elected on a historic mandate, but in recent months we've seen a handful of radical left judges effectively try to overrule the rightful powers of the president to stop the American people from getting the policies that they voted for in record numbers.
To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that, 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer.
Wow. The ruling 6-3, the lone 3 dissenting justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan, who rule along ideological lines rather than the rule of law. The biggest decision today, though, Birthright Citizenship, the Supreme Court of the United States ruling that Trump was well within his scope of power to end birthright citizenship for illegal aliens.
That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves.
Trump, once again, he's putting an end to the grift of those anchor babies, the weaponization of a child to gain free services on the taxpayer dime. And speaking of babies, the Supreme Court also upholding Trump's push to give back power to parents in another 6-3 decision. Once again, along those ideological lines, the Supreme Court ruling in favor of a group of Maryland parents who sued a public school board over its refusal to allow elementary school children to be taken out of classes with LGBTQ plus times 10 themed storybooks.
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child. And this is a tremendous victory for parents. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am surprised that it went this far. It took us to bring life back to normal. So it's wonderful. It's parental. And I kept saying, we will give you back your parental rights. They were taken away, and this is a tremendous victory for parents.
Justice Alito writing for the majority, quote, a government burdens the religious exercise of parents when it requires them to submit their children to instruction that poses a very real threat of undermining the religious beliefs and practices that the parents wish to instill. He added, and a government cannot condition the benefit of free public education on parents' acceptance of such instruction. The effort to stop the indoctrination of our children, a unifying cause for all faiths. The Maryland parents who sued the school board came from Muslim, Roman Catholic, as well as Ukrainian faiths. Once again, common sense prevailing in the Supreme Court, despite the woke war waged by those 3 liberal dissenting justices. These women, why are they like this? I don't know. And while their opinions were of no surprise to anyone, Justice Coney Barrett's takedown of Justice Jackson, well, it was more spectacular than any fireworks display, basically writing that Jackson is at odds with the Constitution itself. And then Barrett dropped the mother of all lines with, quote, Justice Jackson skips over that part because analyzing the governing statute involves boring legalese. Legalese means the formal and technical language of legal documents that is often hard to understand. So did Justice Barrett just say that Jackson is too stupid to understand how to do her job? Ouch. Even MSNBC admitting that this is a big L for libs and a huge win for Team Trump.
This is a huge win for the Trump administration because the court has essentially kneecapped lower courts from stopping this administration when it engages in lawless and unconstitutional behavior.
Unconstitutional behavior to follow the Constitution? Hey, was it constitutional to usurp the power of the presidency, to thwart the mandate given to Trump by almost 80 million Americans, to try and put Trump behind bars for life on trumped-up charges because he was the front runner for the White House? What these Supreme Court decisions ultimately tell the country and the world is it is putting Democrats on notice once and for all. Your days of weaponizing the Justice Department are finally over.
You know, folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country, the greatest nation ever. And Americans like you who believe in the truth, the Chris Salcedo Show will never stop fighting for you.
The Chris Salcedo Show, for the news you need to know.